Hello, and welcome to Across the Pond. I'm William, joining you from London, where the weather is, as ever, doing its best to test one's general outlook on life.
And I'm John, coming to you from the American Midwest, where it is fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
That's either very reassuring or deeply ominous, John. I can't quite tell.
A little bit of both, honestly.
Today we are talking about happiness. Specifically, the idea that happiness is something you can pursue, something you can work toward, optimize for, achieve. Is that true? Is it useful? Or is the whole project slightly misguided?
Yeah, and this is actually a bigger topic than it sounds, because in the United States, the pursuit of happiness is literally written into the Declaration of Independence. It's a founding document. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's baked into the culture.
Which is fascinating, because that phrase, the pursuit of happiness, was written in 1776, and what the author, Thomas Jefferson, actually meant by it then is probably quite different from what most people take it to mean today.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
We will. And for our listeners learning English, this episode touches on some really useful vocabulary around emotions, psychology, and philosophy. Don't worry if some words are new. We'll explain everything as we go. This is Across the Pond, Episode 8. Let's get into it. So, let's start at the beginning. What do we actually mean when we say happy? Because I think that word carries a lot of weight that we rarely examine.
Right. In everyday American English, happy usually means feeling good right now. Like, are you happy? Means, are you enjoying your life? Are things going well? Do you feel okay today?
Yes, and that's quite a modern, Western interpretation of the word. If you go back to the original Greek philosophy, the ancient Greeks had a concept called eudaimonia. It's usually translated as happiness, but it actually means something closer to flourishing. Living well and doing well. It's less about feeling good and more about living a meaningful, virtuous life.
So it's less, are you smiling, and more, are you becoming the person you're supposed to be?
Exactly, which is a much more demanding standard when you think about it.
There's actually a split in psychology between two types of well-being. There's hedonic well-being, which is basically pleasure and positive emotion, feeling good in the moment, and then there's eudaimonic well-being. Meaning, purpose, growth, doing things that matter. And most happiness researchers now say that the second type, eudaimonic well-being, is more strongly linked to long-term life satisfaction than the first. Which is inconvenient, because the first one is way easier to sell.
That is an excellent point.
Like, buy this product and you'll feel good is a much easier pitch than engage in a sustained process of personal growth and find deep meaning in your actions over decades.
Somewhat harder to put on a billboard, yes.
So, quick vocab check. Well-being. This means the overall state of being healthy, comfortable, and content with life overall. Hedonic, related to pleasure and feeling good. Eudaimonic, related to purpose and meaning. You don't need to use these words every day, but you'll see them if you ever read about psychology or philosophy in English.
John, I want to go back to what you said about happiness being built into American culture, because I think that shapes how Americans think about it in a really specific way.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth saying. When Jefferson wrote The Pursuit of Happiness, historians think he meant something closer to the right to live a prosperous, self-directed life. It was political. It was about freedom from tyranny. Not the right to feel cheerful. Right. But over the centuries, it kind of morphed into something more personal. Like, you have not just the right, but almost the obligation to be happy. And if you're not happy, that's on you. You're not working hard enough at it.
That's a significant cultural burden to carry.
It is. There's actually research, and this surprised me, showing that countries with very strong cultural emphasis on happiness tend to have higher rates of disappointment and dissatisfaction, because you're constantly measuring yourself against this ideal of how happy you should be.
The expectation creates the gap.
If you're told happiness is the natural state, then feeling sad or bored or uncertain feels like failure.
Exactly. Whereas in some other cultures, including arguably British culture, there's a more accepting relationship with difficulty and discomfort. It's just part of life. I wouldn't say the British have cracked it. We've simply developed a very sophisticated vocabulary for quietly enduring things. Quietly enduring things. That might be the most British sentence I've ever heard. We say things like, mustn't grumble, which means I shouldn't complain even though I clearly want to. Or not bad, which, depending on context, can mean anything from mediocre to genuinely excellent. In the Midwest, we say, it's fine, which also covers everything from fine to existential crisis.
The transatlantic spectrum of understatement.
So, here's the question I keep coming back to. Can you actually pursue happiness? Like, is it something you can aim at directly? This is where it gets philosophically interesting. There's a concept sometimes called the paradox of hedonism, the idea that directly pursuing pleasure or happiness often leads to less of it. The harder you chase it, the more it eludes you.
Yeah. It's like if you're trying to fall asleep and you're lying there thinking, I need to fall asleep right now, that's the worst way to fall asleep.
A perfect analogy, actually. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust and wrote extensively about meaning, argued that happiness cannot be pursued directly. It must emerge as a side effect of living meaningfully.
So the goal isn't to be happy. The goal is to do something that matters. And then happiness might show up on its own.
Or it might not, in any obvious way, but you'll have lived with purpose, which he argued is more fundamental.
That's a hard sell to someone who's just had a really rough week and wants to feel better.
It is, and I think that's the tension. On one level, we know that meaning and purpose and connection are what genuinely sustain people. On another level, on a Tuesday evening when things feel hard, nobody wants to hear, focus on your long-term eudaimonic flourishing.
No, you want a good meal and something to watch on television.
Which is also legitimate. I think that's the nuance. Small pleasures matter. Rest matters. It's not that hedonic happiness is worthless, it's that it alone isn't sufficient.
There's also the research on what actually makes people happy long term, and it's pretty consistent. Relationships, strong social connections, feeling like you belong somewhere and to someone. Robert Putnam, the American political scientist, wrote a book called Bowling Alone about the decline of community in America. The idea that people are more socially isolated than they used to be, and that this has real consequences for well-being. The title comes from the fact that more Americans were bowling than ever, but fewer were bowling in leagues, in organized social groups, doing it alone. Which is a quietly devastating image when you think about it.
I want to bring this forward to the present day, because I think the modern world has added some very specific pressures to this conversation.
Social media.
Social media.
There's now a curated highlight reel of other people's happiness available to you 24 hours a day. And whether we mean to or not, we compare ourselves to it.
There's a term for this, social comparison theory. The idea that we determine our own value and success, not in absolute terms, but by comparing ourselves to the people around us. It's a deeply human tendency, but social media amplifies it enormously.
And the algorithm shows you the best version of everyone else's life. Nobody posts a photo of eating cereal alone at 10 p.m. because they couldn't be bothered to cook.
Speak for yourself, John.
I'm just saying, the comparison is inherently unfair. You're comparing your full experience, including all the boring and hard parts, to someone else's curated highlights.
This connects to a phrase that's become quite widely used, FOMO, fear of missing out, the anxious feeling that other people are experiencing things you're not, that life is somehow happening elsewhere.
Yeah, FOMO is very much in everyday American English now. I've got serious FOMO about not going to that concert. It started online, but moved into regular speech.
We use it in Britain, too. though it always sounds faintly American to my ear.
Everything sounds faintly American eventually. That's just the direction of the current.
Debatable. But there's also a counter-movement, JOMO, the joy of missing out, deliberately choosing to opt out of things and finding contentment in that.
Which feels like a very 21st century concept. The idea that saying no, staying home, doing less, being quiet is a valid and even positive choice.
There's a related concept from Scandinavian cultures, hygge, from Danish. It roughly means a feeling of coziness, warmth, and contentment found in simple, quiet moments. A candle, a book, a cup of something warm. There's no direct English translation, which is interesting in itself.
In the Midwest, we just call it staying in.
But hygge does sound nicer. He does rather.
All right, before we wrap up, let's do our vocabulary recap. There were some good ones today. Well-being, your overall state of health, comfort, and contentment. A very common word in English, especially in conversations about health and psychology. The pursuit of happiness, the act of actively chasing or working toward happiness. You'll hear this phrase a lot in American cultural and political discussions.
Meaningful. Something that has purpose, importance, or significance. A meaningful conversation. Meaningful work. Very useful adjective. Mustn't grumble. Classic British expression meaning I shouldn't complain. Often said by someone who is, in fact, about to complain. Accurate. FOMO. Fear of missing out. The feeling that other people are doing or experiencing things you're not. Very widely used now in everyday English. And social comparison. Judging your own life by comparing it to other people's lives. Something we all do and probably shouldn't do quite as much as we do. Today's episode touched on some ideas that philosophers and psychologists have been wrestling with for centuries, and that's honestly part of what makes it such a rich topic. There's no clean answer, but thinking about the question more carefully is probably more valuable than chasing the answer itself. That might be the most William thing you've ever said. I'll take that as a compliment. All right. Thanks for listening to Across the Pond Episode 8. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. It really does help us reach more English learners around the world. And we'd love to hear from you in the comments. What does happiness mean to you? Is it a feeling, a goal, a side effect of something else? Leave us a comment. We read them all and genuinely enjoy seeing how people think about these things. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And maybe go bowling. With other people. Exactly. Bye, everyone. See you next time.